We're back to the Neil Haley show, and I read both Case for Creator and also Case for Christ. Did not get a chance to hear about to get to read Case for Miracles. We're talking about the theater. It's coming to theaters nationwide, but I'm with New York Times bestselling author Lee Strobel. Lee, how are you doing? Did you ever imagine in a million years when you first wrote Case for Christ that it would become so big, you'd be a New York Times bestselling author, and also take some of your productions to film?
Thanks for having me. First of all, I didn't see any way I'd ever become a Christian. I mean, I was an atheist. I was a hard-hearted, profane, narcissistic, immoral living atheist at the Chicago Tribune. And I never could have conceived becoming a Christian, much less setting aside my entire journalism career, taking a 60% pay cut and joining a staff of a church, and then spending my life telling other people about Jesus. I could not have foreseen that. And it's a joy to use the gifts that God gave me as a reporter, as a journalist, to now use it to investigate matters of faith and hopefully encourage people in their faith and point people toward God.
Yeah, and Lee, when Case for Christ
Yeah.
came out, I read the book and I'm like, oh my gosh, unbelievable the amount of historical research you do and
Yeah.
everything you do.
Well,
And
it's a joy.
that's the power of
Yeah.
you're putting a case. And that's where I love the title of everyone, because you're not treating this like, okay, it's perfect. It's a guarantee. You
Yeah.
have to put evidence involved in
Yes.
everything you do.
That's
Explain how
right.
you figured all that out, especially as a journalist, to make
Yes.
that evidence take.
Well, this is how we live life. When you think about it, I've got a glass of water here that my wife gave me. And how do I know it wasn't poison? It could have been poison, but I look at the evidence. What's the evidence? Well, we've been married 53 years. She doesn't have any reason to poison me. The glass looks clean. The water looks clean. Doesn't smell funny. There's no people in the neighborhood who are dying of drinking tap water. But it could have been poison. But based on the evidence, I take a sip and I see that it's good. And that's what the Bible says, to take a taste and see that the Lord is good. We respond to the evidence. We follow the evidence. We follow the trail. There are about 20 different arrows of evidence that point in a direction toward the truth of Christianity. Is faith involved? Yes, but faith is a step in the same direction that these arrows are pointing. That's logical. That's rational. We do that every day of our life. And so that's why I think that to investigate spiritual claims is important for non-believers to discover God, but for believers to strengthen their beliefs.
Absolutely. And you think about when you did wrote Case for Creator, you looked at the same
Yeah,
thing scientifically and really
exactly.
took the breakdown of what scientists say
That's
and
right.
what the other that, well, we do have to teach also there's a creation in science, and there's a definite case for it. And
That's
still
right. You
people
look
don't
at,
see
I
that.
did
Yeah.
a book more recently called Is God Real? Because get this, 200 times a second around the planet, someone is typing into a computer search engine the question, is God real? 200 times a second. People are curious. And so I did this book called Is God Real? And a new one called Is God Real for Teens, kind of a book for teenagers that looks at that very thing. What is the evidence from science that points toward a creator, from cosmology, the origin of the universe, from the fine tuning of the universe, from genetic information? What are the arguments from philosophy? What is the evidence from history that Jesus is who he claimed to be, the unique Son of God? And I put that into one volume. And because I think the case is clear and it's compelling that Christianity is not based on wishful thinking or legend or mythology. It's based on solid evidence that points in a direction.
All right. So let's talk about again. This is a case for miracles.
Yes.
How did that start for you?
Well, my journey to God came by investigating a miracle, which was the resurrection of Jesus. Anybody can claim to be God as Jesus did, but if Jesus claimed to be God, died, and then 3 days later returned from the dead, that's pretty good evidence he's telling the truth. So it was an investigation of the historical evidence for the resurrection that brought me to faith. But I wanted to look at, is God still in the miracle business today? Is he still doing miracles? And so I look at cases, not that you read on the internet or hear whispered in the church or whatever. I'm talking about cases that have been documented by multiple medical researchers, many of them published in peer-reviewed medical journals. This is solid stuff. Because to me, if four things are true, we can conclude a miracle has taken place. Number one, do we have solid medical documentation? Number two, do we have multiple incredible eyewitnesses who have no motive to deceive? Number three, is there no natural explanation that can account for this? And number four, did it take place in the context of prayer? And we have cases that meet those stringent criteria, and I think will deepen the faith of believers, but also point spiritually curious people toward the reality that God exists and he's still intervening supernaturally.
Absolutely. So basically, the case for creator, I mean, I'm sorry, the case for miracles.
Yeah.
Did you write that as a book or is it just
I did. It's
you
a
did?
book, came out a few years ago, and then my friend Manny Sandoval, who's a movie maker, said, here's an interesting thing he said. He said, cinema is the language of young people. And if we want to reach young people, we got to talk their language. So let's do a movie. And so it was his idea. He came to me, said, let's make a movie out of this. I said, okay, let's do it. And it's a very creative movie. In the movie, Manny, my friend, and I take a car trip down Route 66 in a 1967 Ford Bronco. So the cinematography is beautiful. And we talk about miracles, and then you see them played out in flashbacks and so forth. And so we had a lot of fun making it. And I hope people have a lot of fun seeing it.
So I only will ask for one miracle. So you got to see the film to see them all. But how did you come up with some of the miracles in your research?
Well, most of them are ones that have been documented. So in my book, so these are cases that we've already seen the evidence for and are convinced these are not just coincidences. They're not misdiagnosis. They're not the placebo effect where people think they're going to feel better and so they feel better. It's not fraud and so forth. So, for instance, we have a case of a woman who was blind for a dozen years. She, in incurable condition, juvenile macular degeneration. Nobody's ever been cured of that. She went to a school for the blind. She learned how to read Braille, and she married a pastor. And one night they're getting ready to go to bed, and he begins to cry, and he begins to pray, and he says, God, I know you can heal my wife. I know you can do it, and I pray you do it tonight. And with that, she opened her eyes and saw her husband for the
Wow.
first time. She said, after years of darkness, I opened my eyes and I could see perfectly. It's a miracle. And I think it is. I mean, how else do you explain the only case in the annals of medical history where someone is spontaneously cured of this incurable condition, documented by multiple medical researchers, published in a peer-reviewed medical journal? I think any reasonable person would conclude that something supernatural had taken place.
Right. And that's the power of believing.
Yeah, that's right.
If you have that belief, it can happen.
Yeah, when it's anchored in evidence, when it's anchored in truth. And I think young people today especially are looking for something to anchor their life in. And guess what? That's Jesus is who we can anchor our life in. He'll change your life, he'll change your eternity.
And we're seeing how well Christian films are doing in the box office. Perfect timing to bring it there.
Yeah, this was not a big budget film. I mean, we we worked long hours for very little, but we'll see what God does with it. I just hope that believers will take a step of inviting a friend who's spiritually confused, and that someday we're going to see in heaven people who'll say, "You remember that movie that y'all made on a shoestring? God used that to help me awaken to the fact that He exists and He still does miracles today."
Well, I love this for sure, the story and where you're going. Now, movies, what's next for you?
Well, I'm working on, I'm going to be 74 years old, so I'm getting toward the
You
end of
don't look
my.
74. You
Well,
went in
thank
the
you.
fountain of youth at
Well, I
74.
feel 84. So,
Okay.
but I have one last big book in me and my magnum opus. And I'm not talking yet about the content or anything, but I just wrote the preface to it last night and it's going to come out in 2027. I'm going to do a national tour of mega churches around the country to talk about it. And we're going to give away 1 million free copies to people on college campuses and in churches. So we're praying that this is going to be a one of those events that God uses to open a lot of eyes to His reality.
Well, fantastic. And again, like I said, you take it a different way than everybody else. So if you want to have an argument with somebody who doesn't believe in God, read Lee's works for sure. Lee, where can we check out the movie? Best place.
Yeah, go to the caseformiraclesmovie.com. Dot com. No, is it org or com? I think it's .com.
.com.
The caseformiraclesmovie.com. And you can see the trailer and you can buy tickets right there. Put in your zip code. It'll tell you the local theater that's going to show it.
Thank you again, Lee. Appreciate it.
My
Sir.
pleasure. God
All
bless
right.
you.
You're listening and watching The Neil Haley